Hi everybody and welcome back. This video is called Guilty, as you can see in the picture, which was taken at the Hamburg dungeons, well worth a trip by the way, and is designed to tell you about all the little things that you can do by mistake, which could be costly and or stressful. The first thing I'd like to mention is the importance again of health insurance and social contributions and how they work here in Germany. So as you now know, you have to get health insurance within the first 3 months of your stay. And it's really quite bizarre. If you're privately insured with some private insurance providers, not all, you can get some money back if you don't go to the doctors for a year. On the other hand, if you go to the dentist and you have one of these things called a bonus card, which is there to show how often you go and to eventually get some money back if you need any procedures. If you skip a year and don't use your bonus card, then that effectively makes it kind of useless and you go back to the beginning. So those are some things to be aware of. As in many countries, pensions are a bit of a hot topic right now, and in Germany it's quite dire. We have an aging population. We have many young people scared that they're just not going to get anything out of their pension when it comes to retirement age. So obviously I ask around for tips. What can I do besides putting money in the statutory pension? And nobody really tells me alternatives. Nobody really says what I can do apart from investing in ETFs. And if you don't know your way around ETFs, it can be a bit risky. So pensions are a bit of a worry at the moment. The second area where I've made mistakes and where I've come to learn a few things is in the area of teaching and working in higher education. If you come to Germany to teach at a university and work as a language instructor, for example, you cannot work for more than 6 years on temporary contracts. What happens at the end of 6 years of teaching on temporary contracts is that you're then barred from teaching at a university at all unless you get a permanent contract. So these are called chain contracts. And what happened to me is I taught for 2 years at Bonn, 2 years at Düsseldorf and 2 years at Münster, which means that I cannot work on a temporary contract in any other university in North Rhine-Westphalia. I would have to change states or hit the lottery, win the lottery, and get a permanent contract at a university in North Rhine-Westphalia, which is very unlikely. Regarding working life in general, there really is a vertical glass ceiling for foreigners. It's very hard for ambitious, qualified, experienced foreigners to get to the same level in their career as a German. Hence I talk of a vertical glass ceiling. You can move horizontally, but you can rarely advance to the same level as natives. And a few people have commented on this phenomenon, and it seems to be kind of unspoken truth that in Germany, be it at work or in the hospitality industry, people don't have this mentality of going above and beyond. You just do the minimum. You do what you can, you do what's expected of you, but you don't really go the extra mile. And if you have big dreams, career-wise, maybe you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to start something, Germany's not really the right place. It's very risk-averse. And if you want a comfortable position, a predictable position in a company, you may be well off here. But if you've got big dreams, as I say, and you want to do something unique, I wouldn't recommend coming here at all. I'm back on the bizarre topic of higher education university contracts. What I learned at one of my universities, but I learned too late, was that if you happen to sign your contract before you've taught your first lesson, you can automatically get a permanent contract. Of course, I did sign one of my contracts before I had taught, but back then I didn't know about this rule. So should that happen to you, you are then entitled to have a permanent unlimited contract. Another thing which I've learned the hard way is that you need to be pushy in Germany. You have to stick up for yourself because people are going to trample all over you if you don't. This idea of being proactive and speaking up and speaking your mind, it kind of can be traced back to school, where pupils are given a grade for their oral participation. So basically, how often you do this, or this, or how often you answer a question or volunteer a presentation. This is your oral participation grade, which can weigh heavily. In the last school I taught, the oral participation grade was 50% of their final mark. So you are encouraged to make yourself seen, make yourself known, and to always kind of speak up. And I remember once in one of the schools I taught at, it was a private school, I was talking about the importance of grammar. And if you teach A-level English, you stop having grammar lessons at that point because the German system feels that at the age of 16 you've mastered all there is to know about English grammar. However, when I was marking essays, there were lots of grammar problems, so I was talking to my students, or my pupils rather, about the importance of grammar. When one pupil was kind of getting a bit aggressive really, and I told him off and I said, look, I don't want this tone in the classroom. And he just said, I'm not arguing with you, I'm debating, and that will help me get a better grade. And I'll never forget that. It was my landlady that told me how important it is to be bolshy and stubborn. I had once a problem with my tooth. I was in a bit of pain. And she told me, get on the phone and tell them you're in excruciating pain, it's really bad, and you have to see someone, and insist on it. If you're shy or you're timid, you might find that tricky. She told me to do it. I did it, and it worked. But it's hard, it's exhausting, always having to act like this, especially when you haven't got that kind of personality. If you don't ask, you don't get. So, for example, letters of references at work. Your employer is required to give you a letter of reference upon termination of your service, but only if the employee demands it. Only if you demand it, clearly, will you be sure to get your reference letter. Another thing that really gets to me, and that I think you ought to know, is that you don't just end up doing your own work in Germany. You kind of end up doing everybody else's job for them. This is partly due to the fact that there's no real communication between some of the large bodies, the large institutions like the tax office, the health insurance providers. They don't communicate with each other. So you have to always go between the two and get the relevant documents, make the relevant requests in order to get what one of them needs. If you happen to change dentists as well, for example, your previous dentist won't just email or even fax, which is quite common here. They won't even fax or email your documents over. You have to go physically to your former branch, your former practice, get the documents and bring them to the new doctor. Don't bother with emails because they're not answered, so you'll be doing that in person. A real thorny issue here is that of subscriptions and contracts. Basically assume that if you subscribe for something, if you take out a new contract, especially for phones or for the gym, it will be self-renewing. This can be an expensive mistake. It happened to me with the notorious Deutsche Bahn, the German rail. I didn't cancel my rail card, 50% off. So that cost me €236 for a year in which I could not really use it because I didn't know that it would self-renew. The same thing can happen, as I say, for gyms, for magazine subscriptions and for phone contracts. That's just an overview. I hope that's helped you to see what you need to be aware of when you come to Germany and what you could easily be guilty of doing wrong because you don't know. Any questions? I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. Bye.